I just pretty much said, here's a job.
The stars were aligned and everything worked out. It really was.
Really?
Yeah, because I had no intention. I wanted to work in MSMS. Mainly, and this is some piece of advice I would give you. No matter how close or distant your family is, find people who are mentors and take their time and learn from them and ask them questions. And I did that when I was a 30-year-old college student. I had never really done that before in my life, and so I didn't even do it intentionally. I just knew there were professors that I had who I was drawn to and who challenged me and who I thought, who I enjoyed being around. And so I had two in particular, and after I left college, I stayed in touch with them, and I would just come back and stop by their office if I was on campus and ask them how they were doing and ask a question. And so one of those people ended up moving to the director of MSMS. And so then I would go by and he'd say to me, I want you to work here someday. I want you to, you want to close the door. Yeah. Everybody's coming into work now, so it's getting a little bit noisy. Wow, he's small. Yeah. But anyway, I would just kind of keep those connections open, and I wasn't doing it to get a job. I just was genuinely doing it because I liked being around those people. But when you have that kind of relationship with somebody, when I brought that grant to him, he just said, well, if you like that grant, you can have a job. And so I did, and then my other mentor was Suzanne Bean, who was a professor here, and it was in her class that I first heard about gifted education, and she had been a teacher of the gifted, and she was the second director of the governor's school. And so we stayed in touch, and we didn't, I wouldn't say we were friends. She was a mentor to me, but I would, I would call her and ask her questions, or sometimes, like, if I was writing a grant, I would ask her to take a look at it and give me feedback, and, so it wasn't really personal friendship kind of stuff. It was more professional work type things. And she actually, this is an educational research center, this whole fourth floor, and she wrote a grant to have the center funded, and it was funded. And so I was at MSMS, and she called me, and she said, I just got a grant to have the center funded, and I want you to come work for me. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm working with Joe. He's my mentor. You're a mentor too, but I feel like, when you commit to somebody, I didn't want to just pick up and leave. And so I just said, no, I'm happy where I am. And then about 6 months later, he passed away suddenly. And she and I were actually at a conference together, and I got a phone call, and he had passed away. And I just knew right then that it was time for me to move, and I just looked at her and said, Joe's gone, and I'll come to work for you. So for me, I think I've gotten into jobs because of people in my life. Even my first teaching job, my daughter was a preschooler here at the daycare, and her teacher in the summer kept her and for me in the summers, and we became friends with their family, and he happened to be on the school board. So when I graduated and needed a teaching job, he just called the superintendent and said, I have this person, and she would be a good teacher, and I want you to give her a job. And so the superintendent just called me in his office, and he said, I have these 3 openings. Which one do you want? So people, and like I said, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't me saying, okay, here's somebody who's important, so I'm going to cultivate a relationship with them. It was just, so the major jobs that I've had in my life have all been because of some kind of a relationship.
So do you think, like, people should just take it easy, let life take you where you should go? Or
honestly, I kind of feel like I have done that myself. I don't wouldn't say I've taken it easy. I've worked hard and I've taken risks and I've done things, but my personality type is the type to say, okay, here's where I want to be in 30 years. So I'm going to chart this course and I'm going to set these goals. But I have learned that that whatever your faith is, God, I believe in God. So I just think that sometimes God is laughing, saying, "Yeah, right." And I struggle with control issues. I like to be in control. So I think for me personally, God is always showing me that I'm not. And so when I look back over my life and I think I have, structured these plans, and then I see this pattern, and my path would have been really, like this, and then I see this that I think he's created or he's done, then I'm like, well, yeah. So now I think I probably do have more of that mindset of sit back and let it happen. But I would also say don't just sit back and let life toss you around. You also want to be able to take control.
Because I'm the type of person, I'm like, hey, next year I'm doing this. The year after that I'm doing this. The summer I'm doing this. Like, I was like, even with governor's school, I hated it because, like, the summer I had my summer, like, back to back, and I had to leave the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do I plan all this stuff? And it just, I'm kind of like, I should just sit back and, well, not just sit back, but just, like, take it easy.
And not stress so much about the control. And I think that's a piece of it. I just don't think, we all know people who do sit back and don't really do anything and use that as an excuse. And so I would never say to be that way, but I also would say don't really believe that you're in control of your future. You're in control of you. You're in control of who you are. You're in control of your decisions. But you're not necessarily in control.
Scary.
And especially for people like us who like control, it is very scary.
Like, it's really hard because, like, especially, like, I'm going back and forth with all these majors, and it's like I go to one, and then I kind of go back to the one before, and then I'll find a new one, and then I'll just go back, and I'm kind of like, I keep going back to the same one, I might as well just do that one.
So is communications the one that you
I
keep
think,
going back to?
like, I have no idea. Like, I'm thinking business and communications, and, like, I know I want to do education, but everyone's like, well, you might not find a job in education, and I'm like, okay, I'll do something else.
I struggled with education. When I was in middle school and high school, that's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be an English and a Spanish teacher, and that was what I was going to do. And my mom said something to me one time. And she said, Kate, if you're a teacher, that's a waste of, God gave you an incredible brain, and that would be a waste of your brain. And I kind of believed that for a little while because, your mom said something like that to you, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, then I need to research cancer, or I need to do something else. But and you can get into teaching through lots of different paths. You don't have to
that's what I figured. That's why I figured I just major in communication because it's kind of like a.
It's a very good general.
And it's not like interdisciplinary studies or liberal arts degree. It's kind of like a. I thought that I could do something different, and I could also go back and teach with that.
Yeah, you can go back and do an alternate route teaching and be able to teach with really any degree. You can go back and be able to teach. And then with communications, you can work for a nonprofit. There's a lot that you can do. And you can work for a university.
That's what I really want to do that because I love how you. I just love the whole governor's school period. It's just like I've always wondered, like, what do you do throughout the whole rest of the year?
Well, governor's school, believe it or not, governor's school is just a tiny piece of my job. So for 6 years, I was the associate director of this research center. And so I pretty much 11 months out of the year do educational research and run programs to look at what works best in teaching and learning. And then governor's school was my summer job. I mean, it was a piece. And I didn't take governor's school on because I wanted it. I already had a full-time job, but my position was funded 100% through grants, and so it was kind of shaky, and I was the primary breadwinner at that time for our family. And so governor's school gave me a piece of my salary that was guaranteed. It wasn't dependent on a grant, and that was the reason I took governor's school on. It wasn't because I really wanted to do it. I mean, I knew I would enjoy it, but it was a much more just kind of logical decision to take it on. So now, in August, I took over as the director of this research center. And so we have lots of programs. We look at, we train teachers and look at what works with taking teachers who are already in the classroom, making them better, what works with that. We do after-school programming for at-risk students. So we look at what types of activities build confidence in at-risk students, students who are at risk of dropping out. And then, so we have lots of different grant-funded projects. And then we look at, like, workforce development. What do you do with people who are 24 and have never held down a job and don't even really have basic work ethics, like they don't know how to come to work on time. And so what can we do with that group to make them successful?